Okay, so hi everyone, and welcome to this fourth talk of the Corpus Linguistics and Applied Linguistics Research 2025 edition. This is the fourth talk this year, and this is the final talk. So we feel a little bit sad, probably, but also we feel very happy that we have Atsushi Mizumoto with us today. It's a true honor to have Atsushi with us today, sharing his research with us. So, corpus linguistics and applied linguistics research. This is a little bit of an introduction. We've been doing these talks since 2021, and so far we've had with Atsushi 20 different scholars, fantastic researchers in corpus linguistics and applied linguistics, some of them doing language learning or just language resources, corpus-based language resources, and other areas of corpus linguistics and applied linguistics research, of course. This particular 2025 edition is sponsored by the Faculty of Arts and Humanities at the University of Murcia, the English Department at the University of Murcia, and the Education University of Hong Kong. So for the first time, we are joining forces to make this series, bigger and, hopefully having a bigger impact. So thank you so much, Professor Angel Ma, for sharing this opportunity to collaborate and work together. This particular edition, 2025 edition, is devoted to thinking about the impacts of AI on corpus linguistics, and this is exactly what we are doing today. If you are interested in this series, please feel free to check out our YouTube channel, where you can find most of these talks, some of those, dating back to 2021, and I'm sure they will be of your interest. So we've had, as I said earlier, fantastic speakers so far, some of them dealing with, just corpus linguistics theory and practice, syntax, discourse, analysis, Lena Corpora, and so on and so forth. So as I said earlier, it is a true privilege to have this lineup of speakers taking part in this series. So we've had this year so far, Dr. Lisa Cheng and Dr. Peter Crosswaite. I think Peter is here with us today. So welcome, Peter. Again,
Thanks,
we
Pascal. It's great to be part of this lineup, and I'm really excited for Atsushi's talk tonight.
and we are so excited that you started this series with Lisa just a few weeks ago. So thank you so much, Peter. And we also had Professor Angel Ma on November 11th. Angel is with us today as well. We had Professor Lawrence Anthony on, actually, that was Tuesday. And today we have Atsushi Mitsumoto. So this is going to be the fourth talk this year. I will hand over to my colleague, Dr. Maria Jose Marin. She will be introducing Dr. Professor Atsushi Mizumoto. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Pascual. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending the conference today. I would like to introduce Professor Mitsumoto briefly. He is a professor at the Faculty of Foreign Language Studies and the Graduate School of Foreign Language Education and Research of Kansai University in Japan. And his current research interests include learning strategies, language testing, corpus use for pedagogical purposes, and research methodology. He has published articles in journals such as Applied Linguistics, Language Learning, Language Teaching Research, Language Testing and System, amongst many other. He received the Best Academic Paper Award from the Japan Society of English Language Education in 2014. Also, the Research Encouragement Award from the Japanese Association for English Corpus Studies in 2016, and the Award for Outstanding Academic Achievement in Language Education and Technology in 2017. So I would just like to give the floor to him now. He's going to talk about, he's going to give us a talk about entitled Towards the Effective Use of Generative AI and DDL Tools in Language Learning. So the floor is yours, Professor Mitsumoto.
Thank you, Maria. Can everyone see my PowerPoint slide?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. I'm honored to be part of this lecture series with respected Corpus researchers from around the world. Today, I will talk about the effective use of generative AI and DDL tools in language learning by referring to a study I conducted. Before I begin, let me briefly introduce myself. As some of you may be meeting me for the first time, here are my primary areas of expertise and research interests. In particular, I have been engaged in data-driven learning, DDL, for many years. As you know, DDL uses real examples from Coppola, so learners can notice how language works. Instead of being told rules, students or learners discover grammar, vocabulary, and collocations by observing authentic data. And this is an example of soft DDL, and a bilingual corpus was used to take into account the learner's proficiency level. And the target structure noun phrase is very explicit with a fixed set of answers. So we know that from research that the DDL has variations, and for soft version, soft DDL is closer to traditional teaching, and the hard DDL is more open, inductive, and often used for tasks like error correction or revision without much teacher support. So it is usually more suitable for higher proficiency learners. And in recent years, with the development of computer technology, the number of DDL studies has been increasing. And we know that from meta-analysis, DDL is effective for language learning and teaching. However, DDL requires computers and some technical skills, so it can be difficult for learners with low digital literacy or lower language ability. So even teachers often avoid using Coppola because it takes extra time and effort. In fact, we recently conducted a systematic qualitative synthesis of previous DDL studies, and it turns out that many of these impressions are correct, and there are indeed substantial barriers to using DDL in the classroom. So for almost 20 years, I have explored how to use Coppola in teaching and research. But as I mentioned, DDL was often demanding for both students and teachers. Then an incredibly powerful AI appeared when ChatGPT was released in 2020. My research agenda changed dramatically. And a few months after ChatGPT was released, I published a paper with my collaborator. And in that study, we show that ChatGPT can support automated essay scoring when combined with human judgment, and that it can also be used for learning, teaching, and assessment within just 1 year. And this paper was cited more than all my previous work combined. So much for my career, but that's a good thing, I think. So since then, I have published more papers on ChatGPT, and in this study, which appeared in a special issue edited by Peter Crothwhite, we tested its ability to assess grammatical accuracy and found it could complement human judgments and even outperform Grammarly with GPT-4. As my previous study showed, that accuracy measures can be automatically calculated with generative AI, and I developed this web application called Auto Error Analyzer based on that finding. And so by simply entering a learner essay and clicking, the system instantly calculates accuracy such as errors per 100 words. And the background and validation of this development are reported in my article in Studies in Second Language Acquisition. And this one is also open access. And I paid a lot to make it open access. And in this study, we asked, do learners prefer feedback from peers or from ChatGPT? And what do you think? And as the title suggests, they prefer ChatGPT. That's because ChatGPT can provide feedback that feels like authoritative, like from teachers, and at least in terms of linguistic accuracy. However, we also found that collaboration is essential. Through interaction, learners show greater engagement and internalization, and they also improve how they give prompt to ChatGPT. So mixing both human and AI feedback seems to be the key. In another study, we investigate the accuracy of automatically classifying learners' open-ended responses, and the accuracy was not high enough for fully automated coding, although it was pretty good. So in qualitative text analysis, AI should be used just for the first step, like a rough draft, and then humans check and improve it. This way of working is already used in many research fields, and it will likely become the standard. By the way, most of my papers are, as I said, open access, so feel free to download them if you're interested in them. In short, generative AI tools like ChatGPT are effective for language tasks. They act as constant assistants, can support annotation, and produce clear, safe sentences, making them especially useful for teaching, in teaching and research, including DDL-based work. Of course, generative AI isn't perfect. It's weak at counting numbers and tends to be generic and can hallucinate and may even invent citations. For example, when counting the words in this English text, it comes to 133 words. But ChatGPT, even with GPT-5, confidently claims it's 155 words. So it lies without meaning to do so. Problems with counting are natural. If you think about how LLMs, large language models, work, they generate text by predicting the next word, not by actually counting. So even if we take these weak points into account, generative AI is still extremely strong for language tasks. So there is no doubt that it can be used as a powerful support tool. In fact, since 2023, many studies have reported on the use of ChatGPT in English education. A review published in 2024 already covered 44 studies showing that ChatGPT can enhance learners' motivation and engagement and help improve their language skills, especially writing. For tools like Lawrence Anthony's AntConc, now with Chat AI and Corpus Chat by Chun and Crosswhite show that how generative AI can help us prove corpus data much more deeply. So together they signal a future in which corpus tools and AI are tightly integrated. So as Crosswhite and Bice already pointed out in 2023, generative AI can address many of the traditional weaknesses of DDL. So it is very likely that the two will increasingly converge. At the same time, DDL has a major advantage in that we know exactly the data come from. So in practice, generative AI and DDL will complement each other rather than compete. So if AI is now built into Corpus tools and becomes part of DDL, the key question is not whether to use AI, but how we help learners build and manage a toolbox of resources like repertoire of those online resources and their learning resources. So in this paper in 2023, I proposed a framework of metacognitive resource use and argue that learners need strategy training so they can choose and combine different tools, corpora, search engines, generative AI, reference resources, according to their goals, needs and goals. So this also assumes that teachers themselves are familiar enough with these tools to guide students. So it is not realistic to expect a single tool, single AI app to cover everything in teaching and learning. So students are the ones who decide, which resource they use. So as my own contribution to this line of research, I developed an AI-powered DDL tool called Lex Tracker. It started as a system for tracking vocabulary learning, but now it also integrates generative AI so that students can ask questions in English or in Japanese about the text they read or about their own writing. I built it because with systems like ChatGPT, teachers cannot see how learners actually use AI. Tracker makes that process visible. And you might notice the logo. And yes, the logo is a playful nod to the British band Oasis. Please don't sue me. So let me briefly show how Lex Tracker works. First, learners paste the English text they are reading. such as a newspaper article, into the text area and click the load button, within a second, vocabulary above a certain level is highlighted in red. So learners can immediately see how difficult the text is, in terms of vocabulary level. And by clicking on a word, they can register it as an unknown word, what to be remembered, and review it later. And this is the main function of Lex Tracker. And in the bottom left center corner, Gemini is always available. So students can ask any questions about the text or their own writing at any time. So like this, students can ask any questions. However, Gemini is not directly reading the text on the screen. So the questions need to be more general, such as, how do I use this word? Or what is the meaning of this sentence in Japanese, like this example, rather than line by line questions about the passage. And those more specific questions can actually be handled by another function, which I'll explain later. So as I mentioned earlier, any word the student clicks in the text is added to a personal unknown word list. And they can also leave notes about where they read the text, such as the URL or the newspaper, or the name of the textbook, or maybe the section or unit they are working on. So by clicking the save record button, all of this information is stored for later review. Further down the page, there are functions for reviewing vocabulary. The one on the left lets students check the meanings of the words, and the one on the right shows the original sentences as multiple choice questions in which they choose the correct word. And the third button, New Sentence, uses Llama 3.3 to generate a new example sentence that is different from the original one. So students can review the vocabulary in a fresh context they've never seen. So until LLMs became widely available, very few apps offer this kind of function, and maybe no app was possible to create a new sentence based on the input vocabulary that the learners input. So I see it as a new generative AI-based approach. This is new generative AI approach to vocabulary practice. So below these vocabulary exercises, there's a list of all the words that students have marked as, unknown or to learn. And Lex Tracker includes a database of about 30,000 words. So Japanese translations can be added automatically for most items. For words that are not in those 30,000 words, the system calls DDL to generate a Japanese translation. And in the generated column, there's a column marked here in the screen. In this generated column, you can see the new example sentences created by Llama 3.3. And if students don't like a sentence, they can generate another one by clicking the button in the screen. And on the far right, check marks show which of the 3 review activities each word has passed. So students has passed yes, no questions, or multiple choice questions, or new sentence questions. So once all three are checked, the word is moved down into the archive as learned. Under each vocabulary item, links are automatically provided for pronunciation, audio, synonyms and antonyms, and even Google images for learners who remember words better through images. So below these vocabulary items, there's a list of all the words. And here's an example of what you see when you click those icons. In addition, Lex Tracker uses GP to generate phonetic symbols, common collocations, etymologies, and even memory aids for each word. In this way, learners can approach vocabulary from multiple angles, and strategy training for better retention is built into the system itself. In addition, the phrase column provides links to web tools commonly used in DDL, so learners can quickly explore typical phrases and patterns in Corpora. So here you can see what happens when you click the phrase links, just the word at the top left, and scale at the bottom left, and corpus mate at the top right, and Lingui at the bottom right. So because LexTracker automatically generates links for each word, one click gives students many more context to see how the word and its collocations are actually used. And these tools are freely available thanks to researchers like Peter. And in my classes, I often project these pages when I need to explain lexical grammatical patterns explicitly and then build DDL tasks around them. Finally, because I got a little bit ambitious, I also added a spaced repetition option. It may be overkill, maybe. Like many vocabulary apps, LexTracker can bring words back at increasing intervals. So if learners tick this option, review happens semi-automatically over time based on the intervals, like 1 week later or 30 days later, and then they get a pop-up and then saying you should review these words. Overkill. Anyway, all right. So so far I've explained the vocabulary learning functions of LexTracker. From here, I'd like to show how it can be used reading and writing. The most important feature is the Ask button in the main screen, which uses GPT 4.1 as a model, generative AI model. When students click the Ask button, they see several sample prompts to help them get started. So they can then ask GPT anything about the text they have entered, either in English or in Japanese. So each of these is a sample prompt, and with a single click, it's copied straight into the input area. So students don't have to copy and paste anything manually. It's really convenient. Especially in classroom with like 30, 40 students, and then you have to share some kind of some prompts with them, and you like upload to LMS, and like you should copy and paste, and then you have to tell your students what to do. So that kind of trouble can be avoided with this type of web app in LexTracker. So in reading, students can use Ask button to get summaries, ask for reasons in Japanese, or brainstorm ideas based on the text, and which then feeds into writing and speaking tasks. The same approach can be used in listening classes if the script is available. So in a writing class, we can use generative AI at several stages of the writing process. But asking generative AI to write, like ChatGPT, to write the first draft is, of course, no. From a DDL perspective, it is most appropriate to use generative AI in the revision and proofreading stages, shown in red. So in writing or speaking classes, students' speech drafts can be fed into LexTracker for proofreading and feedback. Even if their English is not accurate, we can use their own draft as input and ask generative AI to help them revise and improve their writing. And like in this example, students can get feedback the ones they get from Grammarly. So which parts are wrong and how to correct them are shown clearly like this. And this is kind of difficult with ChatGPT because ChatGPT is not HTML based, and it can like make the words in like bold, but not like this type of HTML highlighting is not possible with ChatGPT. Furthermore, because real-time streaming and chat log recording are available, students can have live conversations with Gemini about the text they have written or they have entered. So actually they can talk about the text, or they can discuss the topic or their writing, how good it is, or what kind of advice AI can give them. They can actually see that. And to use generative AI effectively in language learning and teaching, we need to focus not just on the product, but on the process. Tracker saves all prompts and AI responses together with the original text, which makes process-oriented assessment possible. And at the moment, it only supports English and Japanese, but because the code is open and like similar tools can be built for any language where an LLM is available. So teachers can also use an LLM version, LMS, learning management system version of Tracker, which lets them monitor students' activity, review their chat logs, and give feedback based on how they actually use AI. So I run a small classroom-based study using Tracker. Students in 2 classes, the focus was reading and writing. One class was 33 students, the other was 30 students, and they used it for 1 semester. In Japanese universities, we have like 90 minutes or maybe 100-minute class for 15 weeks. And I compared pre and post scores on 2 scales. One is self-efficacy in AI tool use, and the other was ethical use of AI tools. Both are developed based on previous studies, and I used 6-point Likert scale to ask my students to evaluate what they thought about the use of AI and how they felt about it. And this table shows the procedure for the 2 classes. The only difference was that the treatment class A, Tracker group was, both groups use Tracker. But in class A, Tracker was used regularly, constantly in class with my scaffolded guidance, whereas class B used it only as homework. So it was like part of their homework assignment to use Tracker to review what they learned in class. And here are the results. At the start, the 2 classes had similar self-efficacy, but by the end, only class A with scaffolded Tracker use showed a clear increase, and class B changed very little, and the interaction was significant. P was lower than 0.05, which indicates that the improvement in self-efficacy can be attributed to the way Tracker was integrated and supported in class A, rather than to tool exposure alone. And for ethical use of AI tools, both classes started high and increased only slightly with no significant difference between them. The non-significant interaction suggests that in this sample, scaffolded use did not lead to statistically stronger change in ethical awareness than a simple introduction to the tool, possibly because students' initial awareness was already high. Because out of like 6-point Likert scale, their initial score was 4.8 or something. So that means they are really careful about ethical use of AI for their learning. So to summarize, students' confidence in using AI tools improved only when Tracker was actively scaffolded in class. In contrast, ethical awareness was high from the beginning and didn't really differ between the 2 classes. In this small classroom-based study, the scaffolded support seemed to matter more than the tool itself. Even with a small sample, the gain in self-efficacy in Class A suggests that human guidance is crucial when we use AI-based tools as part of DDL. And ethical awareness scores did not really change because they were already high, but the logs reveal something more worrying, concerning actually. Many learners simply accepted AI feedback without questioning it. Lower proficiency students, especially, for example, submitted a revision that was identical to the AI input, whereas a higher proficiency student asked follow-up questions about why certain changes are made by Lex Tracker. So that kind of follow-up question is very, very important, when it comes to using the suggested revisions by AI. And because AI cannot fine-tune its feedback to each learner in the way a human teachers can, some students may not fully understand the output. So critical reflection on AI feedback supported by teachers is essential, especially for those lower level learners. And that's why I share this checklist with my writing students. The points are simple. I don't let AI do all the writing. The ideas are my own, and I carefully check every AI revision. I use expression that match my level, and that can be used with the support of resources like dictionaries. This one is difficult for lower level learners, so they need help with from teachers. And finally, my voice, my perspective, style, and intention remains intact after using AI. And this checklist helps students reflect on their writing process and use AI more responsibly. And through developing and using Lex Tracker, I realized that you never learn if you never try. Blanket bans are not realistic. Learners naturally worry about possible downsides, and many teachers are still unfamiliar with this approach. So the real advantages and drawbacks only become visible through actual use. And I myself only understood many issues after watching my own students use Lex Tracker. That is why we need systematic step-by-step guidance with teacher taking the lead. To design this kind of step-by-step guidance, we first need a realistic view of what generative AI can and cannot do. This is especially true when we consider the limitations of generative AI. When people hear AI, they often imagine human-like robots replacing teachers. But in reality, AI works more like a high-powered dictionary. It helps you express your ideas in English or in any other language, another language. But it doesn't instantly provide perfect individualized learning, not yet. So, of course, learners need teachers' support in terms of using AI effectively. And this naturally leads to the question what kinds of teacher expertise we need in order to use DDL and AI as well. In technology use, three types of knowledge have traditionally been essential: content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and technological knowledge. And this TPAC model is often investigated in DDL as well. I often see Peter publishing on this topic, focusing on TPAC model. But in the age of generative AI, we need to add one more: learner knowledge. AI use makes learners' thinking, reactions, and learning preferences more diverse than ever. So to decide how and when to use AI effectively, understanding learners is crucial. So I suggest two DDL teacher expertise lies in integrating all four areas. And putting these ideas together, I'd like to end with three key points. The first point is good AI or DDL tools are not enough. learners do not automatically use AI or DDL effectively just because a powerful tool is available. The second is scaffolding plus strategy training plus learner knowledge are key. Teacher scaffolding, informed by knowledge of learners, and explicit strategy training is essential for ethical and effective use of AI. And finally, with teacher support, AI becomes not a shortcut, but a challenging and empowering space where the original goals of DDL, that's autonomy, noticing, data-driven exploration, that can actually be realized. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Mizumoto. It was such an interesting talk, and I'm sure that, well, we already have quite a few questions that I would like to pass on to you. The first one is from Lawrence Anthony. He's been asking if that you've been using different large language models for the tools. So he would like to know if you could explain the rationale behind deciding which large language model can be used for a particular tool.
Okay, thanks, Lawrence, for that question. I focused on using model that's cheap, actually, because I'm using it through API, and so if the decision depends on if the model can deal with Japanese or not, because some students ask questions in Japanese, and if the model cannot produce Japanese properly, then I cannot expect it, good feedback from generative, like the model. So I was using Llama for the first part, but not with the like asking questions about the text or the how good the writing is, because some students ask all those questions in Japanese. So I needed a model that can deal with Japanese, and that's GPT. And at the time, and like models are getting better and better, and so it's kind of I'm always trying to think about which model fits best for this purpose. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have another question. This is from Catherine Bennett. She was asking about the idea of ready-made prompts that students can use. And she asks if there is any concern that students are not learning how to write the prompts themselves as a critical AI learning skill.
That's a very good point. Yeah, that could happen. So if I want them to learn the prompt engineering and prompting techniques, I intentionally tell them not to use the determined prompts provided in the system.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Right. And she also asks if you have any plans to develop a sort of more grammar-focused counterpart of LexiTracker.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, all depends on the needs and what kind of aspect we want to work on. So any tools will be possible if you think that's that's necessary for your students. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let's work together, everyone.
All right, good. Then there's also another question that says if LexiTrack allows student-teacher content to be used to train the model, and how does it deal with authorship issue, particularly in relation to users' content, especially in writing?
That part is actually where learners need teachers like supervision, because they don't know what be the good deed, or what can be what is okay or not. So I tell them explicitly, you should use the expression that match your level, otherwise I can tell. And I actually tell them, if that's copy and paste, just don't look at it, just write it now with paper and pencil. And if that's I never ban the use of generative AI in my class, but I tell them explicitly. I know that if it's AI produced or not. So that kind of advice is actually useful, helpful for my students to focus on the content, not just only the copy and pasting from AI. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I guess
Thank
so.
you.
I guess so. Thank you. Okay, and then one last question. This is a practical one. And they're asking about the limitations to use token use limitations as it's resorting to large language models that they apply limits to the number of requests or questions or whatever. So are there any costs of token use as regards the use of Lextracker when it resorts to large language models, or how does that go?
I pay everything with my research grant. So
Okay.
learners my students don't really have to worry about it.
And if someone else registers and wants to use it outside your university?
Yeah, and actually, I have like free version that everyone can access. And if you like put like million token, 1 million token, or 200 million token, that will crash the system. But that's a possibility. But I know who is using a lot of like API token. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you very much. I mean, we have a few more questions, but I think that the idea has been really clear, really inspiring, and I'm sure that everyone will be registering and trying to use the tool. So it seems very promising. So thank you very much, and thank you very much to everyone for attending the talk. And and we'll see you in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you.